So if your prospect tells you that your program is too expensive, this is happening for one of few reasons, right? The first reason is because in the qualifying stage, you failed to dig deep enough to help them understand how big their pain or their problem is. Let's take an example and say that you're selling fitness coaching, okay? And some of the main questions that you asked is, hey man, why do you want to get in shape? And they gave you some generic reason like, oh man, I want to feel more energetic. And you just kind of brushed over it and said, okay, great. You want to feel more energetic and what kind of diet plan? And you just skipped over that question. You made a massive mistake because what you should have done instead is said, feel more energetic. Why is that, right? And dig deeper. And they might start to explain to you, well, at work, I start to feel exhausted very early. And how's that been affecting your work performance? And then as you begin to dig deeper, they might say to you, well, because of the fact that I'm not in shape, I missed a day of work and my boss told me that this is your last warning. If you don't show up to work with punctual timing, then you could risk losing your job. Now, when your boss said that to you, who else would it affect if you were to lose your job? It would affect my kids and et cetera, et cetera. And what would you do in that situation? Well, I don't know, man. It would be tough and, I'd lose out on making 40 grand a year. So you see the difference. In the first one, you just asked the question, but you didn't dig deep enough to realize the extent of the pain, right? Now, at the end of the sales call, if your fitness coaching program is $1,000, $2,000, in compared to losing out on a $40,000 a year salary, not being able to provide for your kids, not having the energy to play with your kids, not having the energy to see your kids grow up or grow in all too soon, the pain is here, the price point is down here. So a lot of the reason as to why this objection happens and occurs is because you failed to do something earlier in the sales call. Okay. Now, most sales trainers won't tell you this. They'll just give you some line that you can possibly use without telling you the root cause of the problem. The reason I'm explaining this to you is I actually want you to do well. I want you to close a bunch of deals, get rich, and then come say thank you to me, right? And yourself because you put in the work. Point being, let's say for whatever reason, you've done all of that, but you still get that objection at the end of the sales call. Okay. There's two things that you can do here. The first one is remind them of the exact reasons as to why they're doing this. So, John, at the beginning of our conversation, you mentioned to me that if you don't get in shape, you're going to have less energy. And if you have less energy, you might miss work again. You might not be as punctual. You might not be the top performer in your company. And that risks you losing your job. So in comparison to possibly losing out your livelihood and investing a mere $1,000 into yourself, what would you say is really more expensive? And then it will remind John as to why he's doing this. And sometimes because there's so much information that's been covered across the sales call, that's all your prospect needs to finally give you that yes and go ahead and make that decision to move forwards. Okay? That's option one. Option two, let's say you're still in a scenario where you're still dealing with this objection that your program is too expensive. What you want to do in this situation, and I've trained countless closers of mine to do, is ask the hard questions. And most people don't ask the hard questions. So in comparison to what, John? Typically it's important to ask this question because they might be comparing you to someone else that they've inquired to work with. And they might say, oh, but I've researched Jonathan's program and Jonathan's program is $300 cheaper than yours. And then you can, again, insert result. So let me ask you a question. Is $300 the only decision maker between you working with me, becoming more energetic, being punctual to your job, making a $40,000 a year income, and supporting your family? Is $300 really the decision maker? Because if that's the case, John, I'm going to be the first person to tell you not to do it. What message this sends to John is it sends John a message saying, I don't need you, but it also puts into perspective how silly and kind of stupid it comes across for him to even bring up the fact that there's a $300 difference. John, why do you think that we charge $300 more than the other person? And then John, if he's had a good interaction with you across your sales call, is going to justify why you're more expensive. Again, people associate higher price, higher quality. So at this point, John might say, well, you guys do offer the one-on-one aspect, which Jonathan doesn't have. Exactly, John. The reason we offer this is X, Y, and Z. We know one-on-one is going to help you in this way. So let's get started. Essentially, what you're doing in this scenario is you're looping. Again, looping around why your program is going to help John with X problem, and he's ready to get started. Now, there is one final thing that you can do, and this is another thing that's worked for me exceptionally well on different sales calls, and you can go out there and say, John, let me ask you a question. And this is typically if your program's more expensive. When was the last time you spent $5,000 or invested $5,000 on anything, let alone my program, anything else? And then John might say, well, I got my garden done because my wife wanted me to get my garden done. And in that case, you can say, well, John, when you spent that $5,000, were you a bit hesitant to do it? And he might say yes. So how did you justify spending $5,000 on your garden? Well, it's something my wife always really wanted, da, da, da. Between me and you, if you were to do this, how could you possibly justify investing $5,000 with me? Now, when you ask that question, again, you're flipping and reversing the roles. You're helping John remember a time where he spent $5,000. You can even insert another question such as, when you spent that $5,000, was it the end of the world afterwards, or were you still alive and breathing? And it helps remind John that even though he's made similar size purchases in the past, it wasn't the end of the world. It was completely fine. And you can even insert another question by saying, well, how much money did that garden make you? Nothing. Exactly, John. So wouldn't it make more sense to make an investment here that is going to allow you to do X, Y, and Z? Yes. Close the deal. Okay? There are several ways that you can deal with this objection. Use the ones that I've listed, in this previous clip. And remember, you can always play back these clips. So don't look at it as a one and done thing. This is a resource that you have for a lifetime. And as long as you live and breathe and close deals, you can always come back to this and use these, okay? Memorize them, get really good at them. Before you know it, I'm going to be in the back of your head during your sales calls, anytime one of these objections come up, and you're going to be able to close like a pro. So look, if you've got tons of value from these objection handling videos, then there's something that I want to do very exclusively for you. Regardless of whether you're an agency owner, digital marketer, affiliate, coach, consultant, it doesn't matter what your industry is. If you sell a product that can help impact your clients and you want to make more money and a lot more sales and scale upwards of $50,000 to $100,000 a month, then I want to give you two choices because I believe in a fair exchange. I've given you value, and what I'd like in exchange is two things. Number one, for me, subscribe, right? So that I can help create more content like this specifically for you guys for free, right? The second thing is, if you want to work more closely with me, have me review your sales calls, take a look at your sales process and see where it's going wrong and things that you can definitely tweak to take it to the next level, then there's a link below that you can follow to get access to all my objection handling swipes in a nice, amazing membership area that you can share with yourself, your team, and even some of your entrepreneurial buddies, okay? And finally, inside of that, you have an opportunity to possibly schedule a one-on-one call with me if there's any availability left, that is. And once you do that, myself or one of my team members will take a high-level overview of exactly what's going on in your business with your sales and how you can rapidly increase the growth of your sales. So your competitors look at you thinking, fuck is this guy doing that I'm not? Or you're able to grow your business to the place that you've always wanted to get it to, but you just didn't know how. So with that being said, you've been amazing. I've been Mehdi, and I'll see you on the other side.